go today, and they are at the GIANT Stadium in Soshanguve.
Yeah, and we saw earlier on thousands trickling into the GIANT Stadium, getting ready to listen to their leader, Julius Malema, as he'll be, delivering the manifesto and making promises to the voters and the members. Speaking at a gala dinner last night, party leader Julius Malema said his party remains the only one committed to fighting white monopoly capital. And EFF spokesperson Abongile Dumako is saying that they are ready to roll out the plan of action to change the lives of ordinary South Africans.
Indeed, we hear that their manifesto rests on 7 unnegotiable pillars, and we'll find out what those are. Let's go back to Pretoria, where our reporter Abongile Dumako has been keeping us updated throughout the morning.
And it's a goodbye for us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Well, live from GIANT Stadium here in Soshanguve, just outside Pretoria under the Tshwane Metro Municipality. Good morning, South Africa, and welcome to this live broadcast. We are witnessing the second launch of the Elections Manifesto by the Economic Freedom Fighters, a 6-year-old party that has been in the reins since the last elections here in South Africa in 2014. A lot has happened thus far, building up to this day. This is where we'll be witnessing EFF leader Julius Malema taking to the stage and delivering that Elections Manifesto, which will be the driving force towards the May elections that are coming. And of course, the leaders of the party have been through the length and breadth of South Africa trying to communicate or talk to locals in terms of what they would like to see come up out of this Elections Manifesto. The EFF going on to say that they want it to be a people's manifesto in the sense that all those that live in South Africa in every corner needed to have an input on what must transpire in this Elections Manifesto. This morning, of course, I'm sitting in the studio with the national chairperson of the party, Advocate Dali Mpofu. Mr. Mpofu, good morning to you. Thank you so much. Here we are at Soshanguve. It seems it's going to be quite an event.
No, it definitely will be. In the lingo, it's going to be lit. This is a very important day, Abongile, in the history of the EFF, as you pointed out. But our feeling is that it's an important day in the history of the country as well, because after centuries of oppression, once again our people have a chance to take away the yoke of oppression. We're in their hands. Today we're going to be giving them the menu of what we have in store should they entrust the country in our hands for the next 5 years. But we will also start with a little bit of a diagnosis of what the problems are before we give the prescription, if you want to use the doctor analogy. Before we give the prescription of what the cure should be. The ills are by now well known. After 25 years of ANC misrule, of corruption, of a complete disregard for the interests of the masses and the poor, we think that it is time that the ANC should pass on the baton and let fresh blood to give it a go. As you correctly say, a lot has happened in the past 5 years of the existence of the EFF, and we contrast this period with 2014, where we were in 2014 at this time. We were a new party. We didn't even have an elected leadership. We were asking South Africans simply to trust us because of what we were saying. And more than 1 million of South Africans did trust us. How much more now when they've seen what we are capable of over 5 years? When they've seen that without the EFF, a whole lot of things will. Without the EFF, I can tell you now, President Zuma would still be the president of this country. Without the EFF, the Guptas would still be here. Without the EFF, there would be no Zondo Commission. Without the EFF, we wouldn't know about all the shenanigans of Busasa and Akrizi and all these things. So if I always say to people when they say, what has the EFF done? And I say, the best way to explain, just close your eyes and keep quiet for a minute and just imagine if there was no EFF. And then you'll realize that where this country would be had there been no EFF. And therefore, we think that our people will firstly reward the work that we have done on their behalf, but at the same time, they'll be able to entrust us with the future.
Now you are launching your Elections Manifesto for the May elections this year. This stadium, we expect it to be full to capacity. What can the masses, including those grainers we've seen earlier on here, making their way through to the stadium, what can they expect from the leader of the party as far as the manifesto is concerned?
Well, I can tell you now it will be a manifesto like no other thing you've ever seen before, because we are going to give blow by blow, sector by sector of the economy, what an EFF government will do. Whether you're talking crime, whether you're talking corruption, whether you're talking transport, infrastructure, land, unemployment, women empowerment, youth empowerment, the green economy, ICT. But the difference is this: we don't make promises, we make commitments. We're going to be able to say, in your area, this is what we will do. If we are going to put a school, when are we going to put it? So that if we say we'll put it by 2022, if it hasn't happened in 2022, you can hold us accountable. So it's that kind of manifesto, very detailed, well-researched, but as I say, covering the length and breadth of the issues. The 25 years that has passed obviously has given us the benefit of looking through the problems of the country, where the failures have been, and make it possible. So our President and Commander-in-Chief is going to be outlining the broad thrust of how our theme, as you saw, centers around land and jobs. And these two things actually do go together, because even as the Freedom Charter says, the land belongs to those who work it. So we want to instill that message, that it's not just about land. Land is an important economic asset, but the land itself is just an asset. It's like having a bus. Until you actually drive it and put petrol in it, it's not going to generate any economic benefit. So the land is going to need us to work on it, to produce the economic results that we want, and the government that will direct that kind of development, starting of course with redistribution, because the central problem is that the land was taken away, and you cannot talk about economic development. And for us, when we talk about the land, we talk about the sea, we talk about the minerals beneath the soil, we talk about the air. The entire thing called South Africa is what we want.
Then how do we make sure that when you talk land, for an example, that the implementation, the commitments that the EFF seeks to make here today, it actually goes to the grassroots levels where people are sort of lingering and don't have anything to do, and yet the land is there?
Yes, that is very true. That is why we started the program of vacant land occupations. Because we were saying this can be done. Actually, it has instigated, the Gauteng government now has started opening up plots of land that have been sitting there idle. Because of that, because it was not so much the occupation was important, and through the occupations, about 50,000 people, according to our research, now have some sort of shelter. But it was also a form of protest, of course, and we're glad that firstly it has instigated some kind of reciprocation, but more importantly, the ANC itself has now come to realize that the issue of land is uppermost in the minds of our people. Again, going back to 2014, I remember very well when we were campaigning and saying the land must be returned, Section 25 of the Constitution. The ANC people were basically laughing at us and saying this is a ridiculous demand, how can that happen, and so on. Now, within 4 years of concerted pressure by the EFF, they've realized that actually that's what the people want. And thankfully, they've turned around, and we're hoping that the Section 25, which is a big stumbling block, will be amended.
Well, you've been around now for almost 6 years, as we've been saying. When you started, you are already again saying that people were laughing at you guys, saying, they're just wasting time. It's been 5 years now, just shy of 6 years old. How has the journey been for the EFF? What would you say are the highlights and the lowlights for the party since its establishment in 2013?
The journey has been wonderful, Abongile. It's actually the most amazing thing. I hope all of us who are in the leadership and even in the membership one day will write books, and tell, as you say, some of the funny moments, some of the frustrations, some of the highlights. I would say for me, if I were to calibrate some of the highlights, the biggest highlight was hitting that 1 million votes. I cannot describe to you how we felt because the scoreboard was going slowly and slowly. And I remember our deputy president, I said to him when we were at about 800,000, let's go home and sleep. He said, then there's no ways. He sat there, and even I went home, but I couldn't sleep. I was looking through the blankets. And when the 1 million mark was reached, it was a major milestone. And of course, our first day in Parliament, as I say, when we already set the pace and said to the ANC, you have 61, 62%, we have 6%, let's do the land issue. And as I say, they rejected it many, many times. But I think the turning point, not just for the EFF, but for the country, was the 2016 election. When the people of Tshwane, the people of Nelson Mandela Bay, the people of Ekurhuleni, the people of Johannesburg and various other places decided through their vote to literally unseat and kick out the ANC from the coffers, from power basically. That was a statement by our people. So it was an achievement not so much by us, but by the masses of our people, because they were communicating something. And that's what we're hoping they are now going to communicate that even louder, because what has happened since 2016 and now is that there are bigger revelations of corruption. So yesterday, for example, there was an estimation that the Busasa corruption alone cost about 12 billion rand. So that makes the Nkandla thing look like a Sunday picnic. And how many other Busasas are there in other departments? Now, if you put all that money together that has been squandered, you can imagine, when we say free education, they tell us there's no money, and yet billions are being spent on bribe packs and chicken pieces. This is the kind of thing where we want our people, because to vote is to communicate. When we say a vote is your voice, that's what it means. So our people must talk. What are they saying? Are they saying they want another 5 years of corruption? Are they saying, no, it ends here, we've had enough? Are they saying you should co-govern? Whatever they are saying is what we will do. And that was, by the way, what occupied our mind in 2016. Because we said, what should we do? Should we go with the ANC? Should we go with the DA? But the deciding moment was, what are our people saying? And we came with this answer. Our people are saying none of these parties should govern alone. And therefore, how do we use that 10%, 11% that we had in Tshwane or Johannesburg to leverage the power for our people? And I think that the arrangement that we came with was the most optimal, because we said we're not going to take positions, we're not going to be deputy mayors and so on, but we're going to use this power. We've already used this power, for example, to insource thousands of security workers in both the Tshwane and the Johannesburg municipality. Those people who were earning 2,000 rand and so are now earning not less than 6,500 rand. They now have medical aid, they have a pension fund, they have security of their jobs. They feed probably another 20,000, 30,000 people. And for us, that's it. If we have made a difference in the life of one poor person, then we can sleep at night.
Now let's talk your relationship with the media. It's always sort of popped up everywhere you go. You guys are known as being too critical and too hard on the media. Yeah. What's the EFF response to such, criticism?
No, the media, we have what we call a love-hate relationship with the media. Because of course the media in any society is important. The media is a watchdog. It does investigative journalism. You can't have a democracy without a free media. But what we are completely against is an embedded media, a media that is praise singing. For example, we have what we call the Ramaphosa Defense Force. That's a media that is not critical of the president, that is not able to hold him to account. And yet they can manufacture stories against the EFF because they see us basically almost as an irritation to their agenda. So we will call those out, but it's not anything personal, and it's definitely not anything physical. It's robustness. A robust democracy needs that kind of oxygen. Yeah.
Now let's talk today. The program, I assume, is going to start at 10. What's at stake? What's going to happen building up to, the EFF leader Julius Malema delivering the actual manifesto?
Yes, well, as people trickle in, the buses are coming from all over the province. So we're going to have a cultural program where we have mainly local, because wherever we go, we try to empower local artists. So we'll have local artists showcasing themselves into this big stage. And then, as we say, in the afternoon, we will have the main event. That is when our president will unpack the manifesto. Thereafter, literally to the minute, once the president puts down his mic, our election campaign has started. From there, we're going to the ground. It's going to be door to door. We're going to have this manifesto translated into different languages, reduced, packaged for certain audiences and so on. And we think that by May, we will be ready to take over. And the message we want to give to our people is, yes, it's a young party, but we're now ready. We're ready to govern. And I can tell you now that, for example, here in this area of Tshwane, we are going to be government very soon. And come May, we will be government in Gauteng. And come June, when they're swearing in the new government, you'll remember these words, that we will be either in government or part of the government, but we're going to be making changes using whatever mandate our people would have given us to leverage for the poor, not for us, because we're not doing this for our own gain. We're doing it, we're a party that distinctively says it is for the poor. And as I said the other day, we have to fight for every vote. The DA and the ANC have a traditional voter base. The DA, white people just vote for the DA and other minority groups almost instinctively, like zombies, without thinking. The ANC has got a captive historical vote. We, on the other hand, have to fight for each and every vote. We have to speak to the voters. So our message to our ground forces is, pass our message and make sure that young people in particular, because the future belongs to them, the women of this country must stand up and say, enough is enough.
Dali Mpofu is the chairperson of the EFF. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Abongile.
Well, there you have it. Advocate Dali Mpofu there, the national chairperson of the EFF, telling us what's at stake in as far as the election manifesto is concerned. Looking back at where they all started with the EFF back in 2013, saying that he's proud of what they have achieved thus far, admitting, of course, that there were some hiccups here and there. I've got Patricia Fisari on the ground at the stadium. She's my colleague. Let's hand over to you, Ms. Patricia Fisari.
I can't hear. A day for the economic freedom fighters here at the